guides, step-through guides on how to create two-factor authentication for a lot of your accounts. They've got guides on how to apply for credit locks if you think your information has been used to create fake bank account details. But more importantly, they offer anonymous, or you can identify yourself, actual phone counselling by trained counsellors. And they help a lot of people go through that emotional stress. And again, if you have family that are affected by these, it's a very emotional experience, and it's very hard to sort of deal with this sort of experience and not be unemotional. So these are a great group of people, and they also offer a great alerts through social media as well. So I really rate them, they're really good. ACORN. So if you have an identity crime, or if you're targeted by a computer-based offence, unfortunately or fortunately, you can't go straight to your local police station in all states and territories to report it. You've got to go to ACORN first. The logic behind it was that the Australian government just couldn't work out how much cybercrime was affecting our lives. So what they did is all the states and territories agreed that to report a crime of a cyber-based nature, you would have to go online, report it through ACORN. That way they can collect the data. Even if it's an attempted attack and that wasn't successful, you encourage you just to spend the time to lodge it, because that information is collected and then reused and reshared through ACCC and those sites. Oh, I'm way ahead of time. Cool. So I want to show you how I access my MyGov account and talk a little bit about it. I'm going to hit a few birds with one stone here. So I'm going to show you my password manager. So that's how, I missed one button. So this is my bit of software which manages all my passwords. I'm probably a little bit over the top. On the top left-hand corner, you can see I've got 126 items. I don't know what I've collected in there. And you can see that the password manager is telling me that I've got reused passwords and so forth. In the center column, you see I've scrolled down to the M's, and I've got MindBody, I've got Netflix, private health, I've got some SIM details, I've got like passport details. Because basically it's a secure app which allows me to log in secure information. And the idea is that I only remember one complex password, and then the password manager manages all the other complex passwords. And the trick is I don't know any of my passwords. For my personal life, I have 107 logins, but I don't know any of them. I don't know any of them. I just remember the one secure password. And so I want to show you how I access my MyGov account, because there's some important things that are going to be happening soon with this. And so it's got the username there, password, I don't know what it is. Basically, I tell the password manager to go to MyGov and to put my username and password in. And so what we see is the MyGov window pops up, and the password manager puts my password in. I don't know what it is. And because it's MyGov, I've got two-factor authentication. So basically, after my password gets put in there successfully, my phone app tells me this is my security token. So I use the phone app to enter that, and then bammo, I'm into my MyGov site. And I haven't included, I've got Medicare details. So you will all have, or you all should have, a MyGov, personal MyGov site, because it will have things like being able to allow you to access and update your Australian tax information and do tax returns. Health records I'll chat about in a sec, and you'll also be able to access and apply for Medicare rebates through this portal. Everything occurs through this portal. So I want to talk about healthcare records. You would all have seen the media recently or over this last half this year about healthcare records. The government's decided that they will be created, they'll mandatorily be created. So by October 15, I think now, if you don't decide to opt out, they will be created within your MyGov space. And it's interesting to look at what possibly is going to occur. So I set mine up, and so when I look at my healthcare records, this is the sort of stuff that may start to occur. Nothing has been generated yet, so I can't show you, I would show you that sort of stuff. But under the documents, we might have clinical records, medicines overviews, Medicare overview, advanced care planning, all this sort of stuff. And there's been a lot of media recently about people agreeing and disagreeing over whether the health records are a good idea. And I'm not going to offer an opinion on whether they are or not a good idea. But if you're going to make a decision on whether you want to manage your health records, you should at least raise your awareness and understand if there's any security around managing your health records. And there is, the government has built in a number of features to actually protect and help you manage your own healthcare records. And if you're going to decide, I want them, then here are some security settings you can apply. There's a whole pile of SMS settings about alerts to how you'll get alerted if someone accesses your healthcare records and so forth. You get notification settings. There's even a setting that allows you to create your own record access code. So if a healthcare provider wants to access your healthcare record, they will be advised that they have to provide a code. You would receive a message, you supply the code, and then they access it. So it's like you're creating like a reverse two-factor authentication. So the government has applied some security to your health records. And I don't see a lot of conversations that are occurring in the media about actually trying to encourage people to learn what security is around these healthcare records. So it's super important that you make some sort of action, positive action about your MyGov and your healthcare records sort of before the end of the year. What we found is when I was working still in the police, we had an investigation, this is a segue, side story, where criminals were advertising in the local paper for delivery drivers. And when people applied, I want to be a delivery driver, the criminals would say, take a photo of your driver's license and send it to me. And hundreds of people did it, and then they just went cold. And the criminals were using this information along with other information to create fake MyGov accounts and apply and generate fake tax returns. When we were speaking to the tax agents about that investigation, they were saying to us that at one point, there were 200 to 300 fake MyGov accounts being created in Australia every day. It was a massive surge in attacks on MyGov accounts because if you look at the information there, for a criminal to generate currency profit, that is a fantastic place to be as a criminal to access your MyGov accounts. And medical and healthcare records are always the highest selling item on any hacker's page. Healthcare records can be used for a lot of reasons, but just think of it for the concept of a piece of a puzzle. If I'm going to scam you or scam someone in your name, if I know your health conditions, how good a piece of puzzles have I created? I've created almost an entire image of who you are, and I can use that information in dozens of different ways to generate profit. So I will predict now that in the first half of next year, our MyGov accounts will be targeted heavily by criminals because they know that the government is going to elect to create healthcare records. They know a lot of people are not proactive in protecting and looking after themselves, so they either don't have a MyGov account or there's very poor security, and they will target it massively. So please, go home today, think about, do I have access to MyGov? Set up your access, set up your security, manage your passwords, and look after yourself because they will be targeted next year. And we saw hundreds of people receiving information that they had fake tax returns being created in their names. I'm ahead of time. How good is that? So just remind you guys, if we can, remember everyone's a target. Share those resources with all your friends and family if you can. Just start to safeguard your pieces of your puzzle. It's really important. Thank you very much. 5 minutes early.
Is there any questions that anyone has?
We've got 5 minutes.
We've got a few minutes.
Okay, yes?
I just want to double check, was it one password you were using as your password manager?
Yeah, and actually, if you've got 5 minutes, passwords are a pain, no doubt about it. But there's a concept where it's called passphrasing, where you generate a short sentence. Have you heard of that? That's awesome. So passphrasing is effectively creating a short sentence to create a password. So if I love the Broncos, I'll say, good luck next year, Broncos. And that might be my password for the next 3 months. Or if I love having a beer on a Friday afternoon, my password at work might be, I love a beer on Friday afternoon. It's a phrase which is not connected to your personal life, which is easy for you to remember. Change a 0 to an O to 0, or 1, just change a few letters. But you're creating a phrase and a password which resonates with you, is not connected to your personal life, and it's a fantastic way of remembering passwords. So yeah, I use a passphrase, a little sentence, and I remember that one password for that manager, yeah. Yes? Look, if you were to Google top 5 password managers, I would trust those top 5 because they've been around for a long time and there are a lot more smarter information security people than me who use them. There's only one instance recently where one password manager identified an issue that was LastPass and they pretty much fixed it overnight. Their business is basically secure your own passwords. So yeah, the top 5, LastPass, 1Password, KeyPass, there's a couple others, but Yeah, you can review them, and yeah. Yes?
I sort of felt like I was having a flashback to watching The X-Files and the trust no one phrase. I must admit that in dealing with records, we tend to think of what's the impact if we accidentally release people's personal details or confidential information which might appear on the front page of the newspaper.
That's right, yeah.
So we think, what's the impact on the business? What's the impact on us?
That's right, yeah.
But we don't tend to think about what's the impact on people if their information gets in the hands of criminals.
And
Thank you for
yeah.
highlighting the emotional impact.
I really hope that came through, because I've spent countless hours on the phone speaking to people who are crying, just crying their hearts out. And I don't know how else to say to you that I really hope that you never ever experience this, or that your loved ones never experience it. But unfortunately, it may reach a point where it does occur, and hopefully those slides are going to sort of put you in a place where I've at least got step one of a recovery process. Yeah, it's a terrible impact, terrible effects.
One
Oh,
question.
yep.
With, you know how you did that secondary identifier that if the health people come and mic up and
Yes, yeah.
comes back and you give that number, is it the same number you're giving out to all of them?
I couldn't test it, so
That's really another issue.
yeah, I would assume, which makes something of you and me, that it would generate a new token, but I wasn't in a position to test it. Yeah. Yes.
So it means I've now decided I'm going to be 5 years younger on all my social media stuff, so they can't get my date of birth right.
Well, actually, last year when I spoke, I got 1 minute 46. So last year I spoke about social media and other things. I talked about obfuscation, which is basically lying. My daughter calls it lying. But basically, we don't have to share everything truly about ourselves. So think of forms you fill out every day, a physical form and online form. I would suggest 90% of the forms you fill out every day, there is no onus to put all the right information in. We're just schooled. When I talk to my daughter, I do some training presentations and stuff, and we're schooled to enter the correct information. And when I showed that slide to my daughter, she went, "Oh, you mean lie? You're going to lie on your forms?" I went, "No, there's a cooler word. It's called obfuscation." We talk about wanting, it's an interesting conversation on social media, but I would just recommend on your social media accounts, just change your date of birth by a week or something, or a couple of years if you feel like a couple of years is needed. But you simply, because we're just reusing and resharing way too much information. And social media, I use social media, but social media doesn't use me, so I'm very careful of the way I use it, and I don't rely on it for my emotional happiness either, which is a segue. But think of, if you apply for a Jeans West mail out and they ask for your details, don't put your real details down. Don't put your real date of birth on a Snap Fitness gym membership. They don't need it. There's no reason for you to share the information. Control what information you release. Identify what's needed. I'm not suggesting lie on your tax forms or anything else important, but I would say to you now that 99% of the forms, 90% of the forms that you fill out online and physically, there's no reason for you not to put some false information in. I think it's really important.
Well, will everybody join with me in thanking
Oh, okay. Thank you. Cheers. Thank you very much. I better get this off.
So